A lot of women come to me thinking they have somehow broken their metabolism or damaged it beyond repair. And that's not the case. We can have compromised it because of doing things, for example, like
Kim Pearson is a BANT certified nutritionist
and international weight loss specialist.
She is sought after by actors and celebrities,
as she advises for Vogue and Men's Health.
Fat loss.
She lost 121 pounds.
Ozempic.
a lot of people lose weight, get down to a weight they're happy at and think, oh, I've done it, brilliant, that's job done. And it's not job done. In reality, the maintenance phase of your weight management is the start of a whole new journey.
Ozempic. Is it a miracle drug, or are we just glossing over the root cause?
Good question.
Welcome to Slay, the centre of excellence for women's health, fitness and life. I'm your host Louise Hazel, and in today's episode we're diving deep into a topic that's central to us living our healthiest and most vibrant lives. It's nutrition. Joining me is a leading registered nutritionist and international weight loss specialist with years of experience helping men and women to transform their health and wellness through personalised nutrition strategies. Her expertise spans everything from hormonal health to weight management. And today, she's here to share her insights on how we can fuel our bodies, support our goals, and feel amazing, not just on the inside, but also on the out. So if you're looking to lose that last 10 pounds, or if you want more advice on how to live a lifestyle for longevity, then this episode is for you. Joining me today to discuss this in more depth is the amazing Kim Pearson. Welcome to Slay.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Thank you first and foremost for coming all the way from the UK. We've flown you in specially, only joking. It was your birthday and you came to visit. Kim, what is a registered nutritionist qualified to do?
So my work involves creating personalised nutrition programmes and lifestyle. We take into consideration many aspects of clients' health, diet, lifestyle, and supporting them in really understanding what they need to be optimally healthy. And it's not just about creating a plan with a client, it's about supporting them in implementing that on a practical level as well. So I will typically work with a client over a period of time to get really clear on what is optimal for them, health, diet, lifestyle, and support them in implementing those habits on a practical level.
What are your qualifications?
I'm a BANT registered nutritionist, so I qualified through the Institute for Optimum Nutrition, and I have a nutritional therapy diploma and foundation degree, and I'm also registered with a complementary and natural healthcare council.
Lovely. How long have you been working in nutrition?
I graduated in 2008, so quite a long time now. What's that, 15, 16 years?
In your time working in nutrition and also working in kind of leading nutrition in the centre of London, how have you found the landscape has really changed over that past 15 years with the introduction of new science, new data, new technology?
That's a great question. I think firstly, there is so much more awareness now than there was when I first graduated. People really had this mentality of, why would I see a nutritionist? You know, I know that white meat is good and red meat is bad, and it's all quite obvious. What's the point of your job? And one of the great things about the way that things have evolved is that people are much more aware of the importance of nutrition, and they really see why my role is important. But also because there's so much information out there, people are very confused. So is fasting good? Is fasting bad? Should I be plant-based? Should I be keto? And the truth is, it's about finding what is right for you as an individual. So there's a lot more awareness now than there was previously. Also, as nutritionists, we have access to so many amazing tools that can support us in our work. So, for example, things like continuous glucose monitors, health wearables like Whoop straps, Aura rings. There are so many technologies available that can support us in gathering information to work with our clients on. We do a lot of functional health testing at my clinic. And again, access to these sorts of tests, microbiome test, adrenal stress test, hormone tests, comprehensive lab work, is much more accessible than it used to be. So this is really valuable for us as practitioners to help us personalize the advice that we're giving to clients.
What you mentioned, wearable technologies. What are the ones that you recommend to your patients and why?
So I have a Whoop strap and I find that really valuable. I think one of the biggest benefits of a Whoop is tracking sleep. So often I see women especially who are not getting enough sleep, and that is really sabotaging their ability to commit to good, nutritious, healthy diet. Training, if we haven't slept enough, we don't feel as motivated and energized to train. It disrupts our hunger and satiety hormones, so we feel hungrier and we're more likely to eat more. We are more likely to get to the end of the day and feel like, oh, I'll just get a takeaway or I'll have a glass of wine because we feel exhausted. So I think that wearables like Whoop are so valuable to help us get clear on the quality of our sleep and support us in getting better sleep. So that I think is really key.
And you mentioned functional health. What are the markers that you're looking at, and what is the data that you're collecting from some of the clients that you see in your clinic?
Good question. So it really depends on the individual. And there are some tests that we run time and again, but we don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. It really is about doing a symptom analysis, speaking to the individual, and then identifying areas that we feel would be worth exploring in more detail. So we often do comprehensive blood work looking at things like thyroid health, sex hormones, nutrient levels. Vitamin D is very commonly deficient. Things like iron, B12, triglycerides and cholesterol, blood sugar levels. So that's really valuable information to have, especially when we're working with people on weight loss, because I see so many women who struggle to lose weight. They can't work out why. And when we test them, we find that, for example, they've got an underactive thyroid, or they need support with their hormonal health, or their liver function is not optimal. And so, again, this really helps us understand where a client's at from a health perspective and how we can really personalize our approach to working with them.
So alongside those functional health biomarkers, what other metrics do you use to determine your client's progress?
So if they're working on losing weight, we do look at weight on the scale. That can be limited because, as we know, we want to make sure we're focusing on fat loss whilst we're preserving muscle mass. If we're working with clients online, then we get them to get a good quality scale, but also we will encourage them to get a tape measure. I'm a big fan of a good old-fashioned tape measure because taking tape measurements can be a very good way of assessing how your body fat loss is progressing, and in particular, what areas. So that, I think, is a very valuable way of assessing fat loss that doesn't involve having to access an expensive body composition analysis machine, although I do love those.
You mentioned, a scale, like a body composition scale. Is there an at-home scale that you advise your clients buy into? Does it matter that it's, is it an expensive scale? Does it really matter if you're just testing on the same thing every single day?
If you are just looking at weight and not body fat percentage, then any scale is fine, really, as long as it's not malfunctioning and giving you wildly different readings from one day to the next. The main thing is you just weigh yourself at the same time of the day, under the same conditions. So, for example, occasionally I'll meet people who weigh themselves first thing in the morning and then say, oh, I gained 5 pounds over the course of the day. I'm like, yeah, that's clothes and food in your gut and all of these other things. So staying consistent with the time of day that we weigh, whether we're wearing clothes or not, that's quite important. And scales can vary. So using the same scale every day makes sense.
And what would be the benefit of using a body composition scale as opposed to just a simple, weight measurement scale?
Body composition can be really valuable for helping us to understand what exactly you're losing. As I said, we really want to focus in on losing fat whilst preserving muscle mass. That is so important.
Why is that important?
Muscle is really important for many aspects of health. We know that as we age, from a longevity perspective, our muscle mass is a really key determinant of how healthy we are as we age. Also, from a metabolic health perspective and a weight loss perspective, muscle is very metabolically active. So it burns a lot of calories even when we're resting. So one of the big problems I see with medications like Ozempic is a significant proportion of the weight that people lose is muscle. And the issue with that is that when they come off the drug, they've lost muscle. This means their basal metabolic rate has reduced and the rate at which they're burning calories has lowered. And therefore it makes it much harder to maintain weight loss long term, and much more likely that they'll go on to regain it once they come off the drug.
So what is your metabolism? And, lots of people talk about they have a fast metabolism, a slow metabolism. What's metabolism?
Essentially, our metabolism is how our body converts food into energy and fuel.
And what do we need to know about it? Like the everyday person, like why is it important to me that I know what metabolism is and what function it has on my everyday life?
So our metabolic health impacts so many other areas of our health. It determines how good our energy levels are. Of course, it's the science of how our bodies are converting food into energy. So if you want to wake up feeling energized and maintain good energy throughout the day, you want to be optimizing your metabolic health. It's important from a weight management perspective. We want our body's energy production and storage function to be optimal so that we are not storing excess fat, particularly in places that we don't want it. For example, visceral fat in the liver, in the muscle tissue. And it's also very important from a perspective of long-term health. So we know that 88% of Americans have poor metabolic health, and this is driving this epidemic of chronic disease. Things like high blood pressure, diabetes, even cancer, heart disease, all of these things are significantly impacted by metabolic health. And so having a healthy metabolism and good metabolic health is really so key for many aspects of health.
What are the things that are driving the rise in those chronic diseases?
So it's primarily our diet. We unfortunately live in a very unhealthy food environment. The majority of the calories that we now eat come from ultra-processed foods. So ultra-processed foods are foods that come in a packet, contain more than 5 ingredients, and contain ingredients that you would not recognize. So things like emulsifiers, stabilizers, preservatives, thickeners, these sort of synthetic additives. And such a significant proportion of our food intake now comes from ultra-processed food. And it's having a very detrimental impact on our metabolic health because we are just not designed to eat these foods. They are nutritionally deplete. They're not giving our body what it needs. We are getting a significant excess of calories and not enough good nutrition. And this is really what is driving poor metabolic health. Ultra-processed foods, refined starchy carbohydrates, and added sugars.
What's the biggest myth that we, the people, need to know about our metabolism?
A lot of women come to me thinking they have somehow broken their metabolism or damaged it beyond repair. And that's not the case. We can have compromised it because of doing things, for example, like losing muscle mass. That's a classic example. Chronic stress can impair our metabolism, but it is not something that you can irreparably break. So I think wherever you are, there are always things that you can do to improve your metabolic health, lose weight, and manage your weight effectively.
So if I'm a person who has believed that my metabolism is broken, what are the 3 things that I could do to, quote unquote, fix it?
Okay. Well, first of all, getting your nutrition right is really key. So I teach my clients to structure their meals around a portion of high quality protein. We want to make sure that we're getting enough protein. You talk about this a lot. We're very much on the same page because we need an optimal amount of protein in order to facilitate muscle growth and the preservation of muscle tissue, which, as we said, is so important for metabolic health. So optimize your protein intake. Structure meals around protein, healthy fats, moderate servings of healthy fats. Olive oil in particular has so many benefits, cardiovascular benefits. I'm a big fan of olive oil. And then vegetables. So we want to be getting lots of fiber in our diet, lots of antioxidant nutrients. So rather than basing our meals on ultra-processed foods and big plates of starchy carbohydrates, look to structure your meals like that with a big focus on getting enough protein.
You recently launched a metabolic reset program. What is it and what does it do?
So Metabolic Reset is my online group program with cardiologist Asi Malhotra. And we created Metabolic Reset because we both have worked in clinical practice with people for years, supporting them with optimizing their nutrition, losing weight, improving their metabolic health. But working one-to-one really limits the amount of people that you can support. And so we're aligned in our desire to help as many people as possible lead healthier, happier lives. And we first started discussing this in the pandemic. You know, online programs really started to become a thing. And we first had this conversation then. It's taken a little while for us to find the time to pull this together in a way. We're both quite perfectionisty. So getting it just right has taken us time. But we launched October 2024. We ran a month-long pilot and we provided the participants with nutrition guidelines, meal ideas and recipes, education. This is really key. So we want to empower the people who are on our program to really understand what is their metabolism, how do they optimize their metabolic health, how to have conversations with their doctor when their doctor is trying to put them on statins and they don't think they really need them and they don't really feel empowered to have those conversations. So the education is really key. And then the group support and community. I think that's a really nice aspect of running a group program. You really see these nice relationships forming, people supporting one another. And as I said, we ran the pilot in October. I was amazed. I will admit I was amazed by the results because having only worked one-to-one in clinical practice before, I thought, are we going to replicate the same sorts of results when you're doing it on a much bigger scale? And we absolutely did. It was amazing. One of the participants on our pilot reversed his diabetes in a month.
Wow.
We had people who experienced significant weight loss and really started to establish healthy habits that are sustainable long term. This is something that I'm really passionate about, making sure that whatever we do is sustainable, because anybody can stick to something short term. But we know that a significant proportion of the people who lose weight go on to regain it. And so we're really focused on not only getting people down to a weight they're happy at and helping them reverse chronic health conditions and achieve good metabolic health, but also keeping them there. That's so key.
So what is it about your metabolic reset program that makes it sustainable to those people who are taking part?
So a big part of it, I think, is making sure that people are eating in a way that does not require hours in the kitchen with unrealistic expectations. Also, we want people to enjoy the food they're eating. I am a big believer that we can eat food that nourish our body, but also are delicious and satisfying and keep us satisfied. So I've put together over 150 recipes, and those are a really integral part of the program, because finding recipes that you enjoy, that fill you up, keep you satisfied, and also help support your health, I think is really key.
So what's your advice for someone who literally is like, you know what, I haven't been able to budge this £10 for a while now, that's just got £10 to lose?
So that's a lot of the clients I see. We work with a lot of women in particular who are educated, intelligent women who have a pretty good idea of what they should be eating. But very often I will pick up quite early on one or two things they might be getting wrong or doing that might be right on paper, but is not right for them as an individual.
What type of things do you see?
So excessive calorie restriction.
So what would you see as being excessive?
Good question, because it can depend. And what I would say is that we've seen an increase in popularity amongst 800 calorie a day diets. And I've seen quite a few women who have been on an 800 calorie a day diet for an extended period of time, often in conjunction with training quite hard, not sleeping enough, holding down high pressure jobs, family stress. And this can lead to a lot of stress in the body. And that in itself can prevent us from losing weight. And I see women who are incredibly frustrated because they're like, I cannot eat any less food. I cannot train anymore. I am running on empty and I'm not losing weight. And when we dig into it, their cortisol is through the roof. They're running on adrenaline and it's sabotaging their ability to lose weight.
So what advice do you give a person who is doing all of the things kind of that are really just sabotaging their weight loss or their goals or their efforts? Like where do you start with someone who's kind of like overtraining and undereating?
Interestingly, I've had a number of clients who I have encouraged to eat more, of course, of the right things, and train less, focus on their sleep, swap high intensity Barry's boot camp for yoga, meditation, walking, really working on practices that help to regulate the nervous system and switch into a more parasympathetic state. And they've lost weight. And they come back to me and they're like, Kim, I don't get it. I'm eating more, I'm exercising less, and I'm losing weight. And very often they notice this, particularly around the middle, because there's a strong correlation between elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol and weight gain around the middle. So it's unique to the individual. If somebody is not working with a nutritionist, one tip that I think can be really helpful is to start by keeping a food diary on MyFitnessPal just for a week. You don't have to do it for an extended period of time. And looking at your macros and making sure you're not either overeating or undereating, getting too many or too few calories, making sure you're getting an optimal amount of protein. If I'm not working one-to-one with somebody and I'm not tailoring it to the individual, I generally recommend that women get around 90 grams of protein per day, splitting 30 grams at each meal if they're eating 3 meals a day. So really keeping a food diary can help you get clear on those habits that are sabotaging your weight loss. So sometimes, for example, people are very focused on what they eat at their main meals, and their main meals might be quite healthy. And when they keep a food diary, they'll come back to me and say, oh, yeah, that occasional croissant isn't quite as occasional as I thought it was. Or they'll recognize that the coffee shop coffee they're eating or drinking even contains way more sugar or way more calories than they're aware of.
So would your advice for someone who's got like £10 to lose, how would that differ from a person who has like £100 to lose? Or would it?
Good question. So again, it really depends on the individual and what is driving their inability to lose weight, because there can be crossover. Very often, people who have a significant amount of weight to lose get to a point where they're so disconnected with their bodies, they really don't know where to start. And we just make things very simple. If somebody does have a lot of weight to lose, I won't generally start with encouraging them to exercise. I refer a lot of our clients to exercise, personal trainers, for example. But if somebody is significantly overweight, it can be beneficial to start slowly, start to see improvements in metabolic health markers, number on the scale start to come down, and then introduce exercise a little bit later, rather than overwhelming somebody with too many things that they just feel is completely unachievable. It's really about meeting somebody where they're at, assessing what their challenges are, because so many people think they just need to find the right diet, that somewhere out there is a magic diet that is perfect for them, and that is the answer to all of their problems. And of course, getting the right diet, optimizing your nutrition, finding what works for you is really important. But often the challenges that women are facing go beyond simply their nutrition, and it goes into lifestyle, their emotional relationship with food and eating. It could be underlying health issues, underactive thyroid, for example. So there's often something else that's going on that's preventing women from effectively losing weight or maintaining a weight they're happy at.
So, Ozempic, is it a miracle drug, or are we just glossing over the root cause?
Good question. So, yes, I am very focused on getting to the root cause of what is driving obesity. And that is largely the ultra-processed food environment that we live in. And so putting Ozempic out there as this miracle solution is doing nothing to get to the root cause. And what concerns me is that Ozempic suppresses people's appetite. It reduces the amount they eat. But if they are using weight loss medications without very specific nutrition guidance, they can run into problems. They can become nutrient deficient, as we discussed earlier. They can lose muscle mass. And so this will significantly compromise their metabolic health, compromise their ability to maintain their weight loss long term. So I wouldn't say that we should not use GLP-1 agonists in any patient. But what I would say is I think that they are being hugely overprescribed. A lot of people in the UK are getting access to them when they do not fit the criteria. And I think we should first and foremost be focusing on getting to the root cause, which is the ultra-processed foods that we're consuming, and really working to create a world and a food environment that is better not only for us, but for our children as well.
So GLP-1 agonists, who would you say they are suitable for?
There are some people who are significantly overweight who will absolutely benefit from improving their nutrition and working to optimize their lifestyle. But having the support of a medication like Ozempic might be helpful for them. I think we have to, with any intervention, we have to weigh up the risk benefit. And if somebody is really, really suffering as a result of being significantly overweight, they've got diabetes, cardiovascular disease, their joints are suffering, they can barely move, people in that sort of situation will likely benefit more from using a medication like Ozempic. When we're looking at the lady who needs to lose 10 pounds, would I recommend that she considered Ozempic? Absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, many women who have 10 pounds to lose do want to take Ozempic, but it's doing nothing to get to the root of the problem. So I mentioned that I work with a lot of women who have underactive thyroid. If you take a medication like Ozempic for a short period of time, you might achieve weight loss, but if you do nothing to improve and optimize your thyroid health, when you come off the medication, you are just going to put the weight straight back on. It's the same as relationship with food and eating. If I'm working with somebody who overeats because they're exhausted, they're stressed, they're using food as a reward, it's what they turn to when they feel emotional discomfort, again, this is not a solution. They're going to come off weight loss injections, revert back to old habits, and put the weight back on.
Have you ever helped someone come off of Ozempic?
I have, yeah.
And how did that go down?
Well, actually, and I'm writing an article on this at the moment. I'm working with the Daily Mail on an article on weight maintenance because it's such an integral part of my approach. So however somebody's lost weight, we always need to look at, okay, what are we doing now we're in that maintenance phase?
Right.
A lot of people lose weight, get down to a weight they're happy at and think, oh, I've done it. Brilliant. That's job done. And it's not job done. In reality, the maintenance phase of your weight management is the start of a whole new journey. And so we really work with clients to understand what are the things that they need to do in order to maintain their weight in the long run.
Berberine, is it nature's Ozempic?
Not exactly. There is some evidence to suggest that it can help regulate blood sugar levels, impact appetite and satiety. I've not taken a deep dive into the research, so I can't comment on it. Yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but it's not going to have the same sort of impact that Ozempic has.
What happens for women if we don't start to make better lifestyle choices? What does the future look like?
It doesn't look good. So we can gain weight that we find hard to lose. We can become increasingly exhausted and overwhelmed by life. We can experience poor sleep and, of course, chronic disease. So diabetes, type 2 diabetes is becoming increasingly common. Cardiovascular disease. There are so many diseases that are closely linked to eating unhealthy foods, not taking care of ourselves. Anxiety and depression is through the roof. And I really see that this quite often occurs in women who are not sleeping well, training excessively, starving their bodies. They're often deficient in vitamin D and their body's just not getting what it needs. So they wake up in the morning feeling very anxious, their mood is low, and it's really sad to see because actually when we start to nourish our bodies and treat them with the care and the respect and love that they deserve, actually we see improvements in so many aspects of physical and mental health.
What do you eat, Kim?
Well, I'll talk you through what I've eaten today. I had my breakfast at about 10 o'clock. I'm staying with my friend and I bought some food, but I'm running low. And so I actually ended up eating organic beef mince this morning with
Yummy.
onions, carrots and tomatoes, a bit of paprika. And then for my second breakfast, I had some coconut kefir yogurt from Erewhon. So now I'm going to live forever. With blueberries, peanut butter, and I mixed in some collagen as well. So that was my breakfast today.
Do you drink?
I do, but not a lot. I think we were brought up in a generation, especially in the UK, of big drinkers. There's a big drinking culture in the UK. And that used to be very much part of my socializing, especially living in London. But I don't drink nearly as much as I used to. I've never been concerned about my relationship with alcohol, but at the same time, I probably used to drink more than was a good idea. And now I'll have a couple of glasses of red wine once a week when I go out for dinner, but it's rare that I have more than that. To be fair, my parents are the biggest culprits when it comes to alcohol intake, because every time I see them, it's like, oh, glass of wine. So...
And they also own a vineyard.
They do. They do. My sister and I joke that we were probably bottle fed on wine, from a very young age. It's like, try this. Tell me what you think. What notes can you pick up on?
Should we be concerned about alcohol with the new data and reports that have just come out from the US Secretary General?
Yes. Many people drink far too much. It's really normalized in our society. And the negatives really outweigh the positives. We know that alcohol intake is strongly linked to an increased risk of cancer. We know the rates of cancer are going up significantly. And I think it's really important to drink in a mindful way without wanting to sound like a cliche. Really understand our relationship with drinking. If you find yourself turning to alcohol when you're stressed, if you've had a full-on day to self-soothe, then it's very important to be aware of that. I think having a couple of drinks in a social environment where it's adding something positive versus using it as a crutch. And it's very easy to slip into drinking more than we're aware of. 2 or 3 drinks here and there across the week, we can easily step over that recommended maximum of 14 units a week.
Fad diets. What's the craziest thing that you've seen?
I've not seen this in my clinic, so this isn't something that somebody's come into my clinic with. But I was once contacted by a magazine to comment on this plastic tongue patch that people were having sewn to their tongue in order to stop them eating.
What?
Yeah.
How did that work?
Some
Sewn to the
barbaric
tongue?
doctor was sewing plastic patches to people's tongues to stop them eating.
Wowzers.
I don't know if that was in the UK or in the US or whether it was some crazy...
Wow. That's scary. That's really scary stuff. Another question I wanted to ask you about, Kim, was fasting for women. Is it helping or is it hindering our progress, our goals, our metabolism?
I think it depends on the type of fasting and it depends on the person. So I think everybody can fast for 12 hours overnight. I think it's good to give the body rest periods between meals, for example. And we are not designed to constantly graze. There's a real snack culture now, and I don't think that that's healthy. I think that for some people, fasting can be really beneficial. But I also see women who are fasting excessively, cutting their meals down to 1 meal a day, for example, or going for extended periods of extreme fasting.
What impact does that have on the body? Is it not stressful?
Absolutely. It can really stress the body because food is one of our most fundamental needs.
What does it do to the body if you're going 16, maybe even 20 hours without food as a woman?
Again, it depends on the individual. If you are somebody who is very calm and serene, you live in the middle of the countryside, your life is stress-free, and your body is adapted to fasting, it can tap into stored energy reserves, you're fat adapted, you may be able to tolerate it very well. I do fast occasionally, and I know that my body does well doing that in a certain way. However, a lot of the clients that I'm working with lead very stressful lives. They live in the city. They're up at 5 a.m. to go off to a class, straight into an intense day, working in finance or law. And when they're putting more pressure on the body by significantly restricting their food intake, that can have a really detrimental impact. It can dysregulate hormones. It can, again, like I said, trigger anxiety in some people. It just places a lot more stress on the body, and it can have a detrimental impact. Also, from a nutritional perspective, we really need to make sure that if we are fasting, when we do eat, our diet needs to be spot on, because we need to make sure that we're getting the nutrition that we require that we've not been getting while we've been fasting.
So what would you definitely not recommend when it comes to fasting? Like, what would you definitely not recommend that somebody break their fast with?
It's good to ease. Well, it depends on how the time. It depends on the period of time that somebody's been fasting for. If you've done a 24-hour fast, you don't need to worry too much about what you're eating when you break fast. Of course,
could you just go and have a burger?
Theoretically, yes, it's likely not going to do you significant harm. If you've been fasting for an extended period of time, it is important to break the fast more gently, because your digestive system has gone without food for a period of time. And again, it depends on the individual. Some people have very robust digestive systems that can take anything you throw at it.
Mine's terrible.
I know. Other people have to be more considerate of their gut.
So, Kim, let's talk about results in clinic. What's like the biggest kind of fat loss result? Like, what's the biggest result you've seen with some of your female clients, and how did it come about?
So one of my clients, Martina, she will be happy for me to talk about her. She's been an amazing case study. She's been all over the press. She lost 55 kgs, which I think we said was 121 pounds.
Wowzers.
And she's maintained that now for over 6 years, in fact.
Go on, Martina. How did
She's
you
done
guys achieve
amazingly.
that?
Yeah. So she was incredibly committed. She's a lovely person. I enjoyed working with her so much. And right from the beginning, she just said, look, tell me what to do. I'll do it. And she was incredible. She followed everything that I said to the letter. We really worked to optimize her protein intake. She wasn't eating anywhere near the amount of protein that she needed. And we just got her on a nutritionally optimal diet. I tested her blood and a lot of her markers were out of range. So she had nutrient deficiencies, her liver was struggling, and very quickly those started to improve. And she got into walking and became more active. She did something called hypoxia. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's exercising in a vacuum chamber. So this is really beneficial, low impact training. So that really worked well alongside her nutrition. And I saw her regularly to support her in things like how to navigate Christmas and holidays. And she really did adopt it as a lifestyle. So it's such a cliche nutritionist saying, isn't it? It's a lifestyle, not a diet. But that really is the key to not only losing weight, but maintaining it long term. And she truly has made it a lifestyle. And I check in with her once a quarter. So I have a maintenance program for our clients who've reached their ideal weight. And we're just checking in with them to make sure everything's keeping on the straight and narrow. And she's amazing. She travels a lot with her work. She's got an active social life. And she's just made this a lifestyle. And she's managed to maintain that weight loss for years now. And she's such an inspiration.
What a dream team, Kim. For all those at home that are listening and wondering, like, that's me, I want some of that. How can people get in touch with you and how can they work with you?
So 2 ways that people can work with me. I have a team of excellent nutritionists who work with me in our one-to-one clinical practice. A lot of our consultancy is now online. So if people want to work with us, they can go to my website, kim-pearson.com. They can book a complimentary call with me. We can talk through their challenges, decide whether one of our programs is a good fit for them, and then they can work with us in a one-to-one capacity. I also have my online group program, Metabolic Reset, which I run with Asim Malhotra, a cardiologist. And people can sign up through metabolicreset.co. We launch officially on the 10th of February. People can join at any time. It's a monthly rolling membership program. And I'm really excited about kicking that off again.
Amazing. Kim Pearson, thank you for joining us on the Slate podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That concludes this episode of Slay. Stay tuned for more empowering discussions on female health, fitness and life. You can follow me at Louise Hazel on social media, and you can follow Kim at Kimmy Pearson. You can also follow us at Slay Athletic Club. And don't forget to subscribe to the Slay podcast if you haven't done so already on YouTube, and leave us a comment. You can also get fit at home using the Slay app. Hit the link in my bio to download it now for free from the App Store and join our online community.